You're listening to the 49 Carats Podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats Podcast. I am your host, Steph. It is Monday, June 2nd. Joining me as always on a Monday, and his son has a message for us all, is Weston. And Weston, before you say anything, I understand it was your birthday just a few days ago, as it was my fiance's birthday as well on May 28th. So happy belated birthday to you, Weston. How you doing? How's it feel to be another year older?
Not great. I mean, if we're being honest, when you're my age, you know what I mean? There's no more, well, I guess there's a couple milestones ahead, but none of them are glamorous. But I do also, happy birthday, belated birthday to your fiance. We just found this out before we hopped on that we share the birthday. So now Steph will forever remember my birthday as well as her fiance's. But this is just an apology because last time we recorded, my wife sent me a video of my son watching us like on our TV downstairs, and he was having a full conversation. Daddy, hi, like trying to get my attention.
We're ignoring him.
Yeah, and so when I came down, like, you know, he gave me some lip like, Dad, you didn't say hi back, you didn't wave, you didn't do anything. So I told him I'd make a little sign for him that says hi, buddy, as a little surprise. So
well, there we go. Hi, Landon. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you to everyone that's tuning in right now. And we just got some news, but it was news that we already knew, Weston, that the 49ers traded for defensive end Bryce Huff. Now, I say we already knew about this because the news broke on Friday afternoon, or actually, yeah, it was like kind of Friday morning when I was live with Wayne, actually, for that show. The news broke that the 49ers were finalizing the trade for Bryce Huff. Now both teams have officially announced it. What I'm finding funny, Weston, and I mentioned this too before we went live, is we still don't know what the 49ers gave up. All we know is that it's a mid-round pick. And Adam Schefter on Friday did say it's a day 3 pick. So that's the extent of what we know. Both teams have announced it, but we still do not know what round this pick is, which makes me think maybe it's a conditional pick or something like that. Or maybe they're just waiting for that physical to clear. Of course, it's been agreed to, but pending that physical with Bryce Huff. So maybe we still got to wait a little bit. But we do know it's a day 3 pick for Bryce Huff, the former Jets undrafted free agent, signed with the Jets in 2020, spent 4 years with them. He's only 27 years old. Everyone knows about, by now the season he had in 2023 where he recorded 10 sacks. That was under Robert Saleh. In 2024, he joined the Philadelphia Eagles on a 3-year deal. Eagles were hoping for, to get something a lot or like a lot out of Bryce Huff, right? And they didn't really get that. He underperformed. So Eagles cutting their losses, and he's now in San Francisco. Weston, tell me your initial thoughts about this move for the 49ers. Are you satisfied with this at all?
I'm actually very satisfied with this move. I think it addresses a need, and I'll clarify that in just a moment. But this is a guy who literally just turned 27 years old, played his best football under your now defensive coordinator when he was the Robert Saleh, when he was the head coach of the New York Jets. Do I think the 2023 year 10 sack is an anomaly? Probably, if you look at the rest of the body of work, and a lot of that was under Saleh. But I also think this is a guy that just had a big season in a limited role. And this is what happens in all sports. Get paid on past performance, got a big contract to go to Philadelphia as a free agent. And I think the reality is he was never going to live up to those expectations. The truth is Bryce Huff is best suited as a situational pass rusher. He is not an every down defensive lineman. The contract that he got from the Philadelphia Eagles says, we want you to play every down, and we need you to be 12 to 15 sacks every single season. I just think, it's kind of like being picked number 1 overall in the draft. More often than not, you're just set up for failure because the expectations are never going to align with the production. But if you're giving up speculation, right, a mid-round pick, if it is conditional, it's probably a 5th round pick, could be a 4th, depending upon how much he plays or, sack levels, etc. But you're getting a guy for half of his contract, essentially, right? Like the Eagles are going to pay one half, you're going to pay the other half. So if it doesn't work out, you move on, you're not burned. And at the end of the day, you're giving a guy, let's say you're giving up a 5th round pick for a guy that, if healthy, is going to be on the field right away in those situational downs, right? So I feel like there's more plus side than negativity, in my opinion, on this particular move. So I like it. And again, 27 years old, right? Like there's nothing to believe that his best football isn't in front of him, let alone behind him. So I'm excited by it, and it solved a need. It's always the pass rush for the last 2 years, Nick Bosa, Nick Bosa, Nick Bosa. And if it's not Nick Bosa, who's it going to be? Yes, you just invested in youth along the defensive line, but I just think this is a guy who comes in on 3rd down and he knows the assignment. Pin the ears back and go. And you've heard former teammates talk about how he has great pass rushing ability, good moves, good first step, all those things. But if you're asking him to set the edge and stop the run, that's just not Bryce Huff's game.
Yeah, and as we mentioned, the 49ers, it's an undisclosed day 3 pick that the 49ers are sending. The reason that we like the value, as you mentioned, Weston, like the value, the low risk of this deal is that, like you said, the Eagles are essentially eating half of his contract. They're converting $9.05 million of his salary into a signing bonus. They will absorb that. And the 49ers are responsible for the rest, which is $7.95 million of his base salary. So that's a pretty good cost-effective deal for the 49ers. And they're still among the top in the league as far as available cap space. And, I would expect that a good portion of that, if not all of that, is probably going to be rolled over to next year, as they like to do. But yeah, this is a good move for the 49ers. We've seen them make in the past these low risk, potential high reward moves. And the fact that he underperformed, with the Eagles, I think makes it a perfect opportunity for the 49ers to get good value out of him. Again, I mentioned it. He was an undrafted free agent with the Jets back in 2020. So, his role evolved quite a bit over the course of those 4 years that he was with the Jets, and that 2023 season was the big one. What I find most interesting, and you kind of spoke to this a little bit, Weston, is that if you look at the games played, right? He's played in a lot of games in his career. If you look at the starts, in 2021, he started 7 games. With the Eagles in 2024, this past season, he started 6 out of those 12 games that he played. His best season with the Jets, 2023, 17 games played, 0 starts in that span. So I think that perfectly illustrates what we're saying, that, hey, this isn't a guy that's going to be a starter, nor is that his best role, right? Nope. Like his best role is coming in as a situational pass rusher, and that get him loose doing what he does best. And that's exactly what Robert Saleh did. And I expect that Saleh knows this about him and is going to use him the exact same way that he did in 2023 when he had all these, crazy stats, 10 sacks, 29 tackles. He, again, used primarily as a situational pass rusher. He played 82.2% of the Jets' third down defensive snaps that season. He ranked 3rd among edge rushers in pass rush. Oh my God, that's so hard to say. Pass rush win rate. Say that 3 times fast. He had a 22.9% pass rush win rate that year. Again, 10 tackles for loss, 21 quarterback hits, 68 quarterback pressures in those 312 pass rush snaps. His pressure rate led all defenders that season. And I found this the most interesting, and like you can know exactly why the 49ers and Robert Saleh and Chris Kosarek will love Bryce Huff. His get off was insane at 0.749 seconds in that season. That would rank 6th fastest among defensive linemen that year. So he's a speed rush guy. Yeah. He's got that quick get off that the 49ers really like. And I think the role that he's going to have on this defense is going to fit him very well.
Yeah. I love what what you brought up about like the starts versus not, and no secret that like his best year is in a year where he's 83% of his snaps are on third down, where he is fresher than everybody else on the field. And I just think it's in line with you just have to set the proper expectations. Like, this was a highly sought out free agent at the end of the 2023 season. One that 49er fans wanted the 49ers to stick their nose in. And then he got the big contract. I can't think in 1 year where he played limited snaps and didn't play a full season for the Eagles that he just forgot how to play football and is just not qualified. It just, for what he was signed for, doesn't align to like I know it doesn't equate the result that he produced, but I also think it's a miss on expectations of what the guy's ability can do for you. He's not going to be an every down lineman. And that Eagles defensive line is loaded to begin with. So it was a tall task to even crack the lineup in the first place. And 49ers are going to ask him to say, it's 3rd and 7, it's 3rd and 8. We're going to give you opportunity to rush the passer and create havoc, strip sack, get in the back, whatever it is, get the quarterback off rhythm. Like, that's what he's going to be asked to do. And the 49ers haven't had a secondary player that is capable of that in quite some time from the edge opposite Bosa, or in lieu of Bosa. If it's a long drive and he just got to get off the field, like, here's somebody, again, who's got experience in the league, who's got experience with the coordinator. I just don't see how this move, regardless of it's a 4th round pick or a 5th round pick, how this makes the 49ers any worse, right? Like, to me, this only improves the defensive line, which was something that everybody was concerned about walking into the season, during the offseason, pre-draft, et cetera. So it's hard for me to not be excited actually about this. I don't want to just say that I like it and I get it. I'm excited about it because it provides another element to the defense that's been missing.
Yeah, and I think it's also, we're kind of pointing out why that 2023 season worked so well for him, and we talked about how Saleh used him at his best. Well, another thing is the scheme with the Eagles was different, right? Yeah. Like, Saleh runs that 4-3. Philadelphia was running the 3-4, and I think that definitely, some guys just aren't as good in one scheme over the other. And so that's another reason why, I got to believe that 49ers, Robert Saleh, going to use him in the way that works best for him. And we have, the stats to prove that he's already been successful in that situation. So I'm excited to see more of that, honestly. And yeah, we're seeing some clips here of what he did in his time with the Jets. And if he does even just a bit of this, I think it'll be very much worth it for the 49ers. So I'm excited about this move. We don't think he's going to be starting, right? No. Which is okay. I think the plan should be for Mykel Williams to start on those base downs, because that's when you're worried about run defense anyway. That's why you drafted Mykel Williams, right? That's what they liked about him the most. And then maybe you kick him inside on – God, look at this game. You kick him inside on those obvious passing downs, and then you have Bryce Huff enter on the side, rushing opposite Bosa. So I think it's going to create some advantageous opportunities for the 49ers to get some matchups that they really like. And it's just going to mean more opportunities for Nick Bosa. If Nick Bosa is the one that wins the rep, it's going to mean more opportunities for Bryce Huff. Like, those guys are going to be able to complement each other really well, just like we know other guys have been able to do, with this defense in the past.
Well, that previous clip that you had up, not this one, but the one before that showed 2 different angles in this very same game. That's where he's going to line up. It's going to be that wide 9, right? And he's more often than not just going to sprint around the tackle that he's, opposite of. And that's by design. Again, just an element that's been missing. Like, we know Bosa's got the full bag of tricks, right? He can bull rush you. He's got speed. He can spin off you. He can do those things. He's a master of his craft. This guy's not going to have as many tricks in his bag, but that speed element, and that's what the ask is going to, like I said, I cannot make this statement. I can only make it so many times. Like, he's just going to be asked to get after the quarterback. That's it. That's it. Because now Saleh even knows this guy, right? Like, maybe early in his Jets career, while with his athletic upside, et cetera, even that coaching staff probably had different expectations of him. And then they found a way to make it work for that defense. And then he gets paid and they can't retain him, right? Like, that's basically what happened.
Yeah, I like this comment from Benali. If Oren Burks can go from here as San Francisco to Philly and suddenly remember how to make meaningful plays, why can't Bryce Huff go from Philly to San Francisco and do the same?
Right.
So much of, I think, football that gets forgotten by fans and even myself sometimes is fit.
For
Like,
sure.
fit. It's just like how you fit in with the scheme is so important. And it's for Oren Burks, good for him, right? Like, he fit that scheme even better than he did with San Francisco. And I think it certainly could be the opposite for Bryce Huff, where it just wasn't really clicking out there. And, you know, he's going to have a chance to shine once again with Robert Saleh. This tweet from KP Kyle Posey, who was on the show last year for our preview shows, he tweeted this: looking up the difference in Bryce Huff's usage from 2023 to 2024 when rushing from a wide 9. In 23, he had 240 snaps and his pressure rate ranked first. In 2024, only 89 snaps out of the wide 9 and his pressure rate ranked 9th. So, to his point, production wasn't the issue, opportunity was. And for what it's worth, Bosa was top 4 in each of the previous 2 years in wide 9 rushes. So again, talking about fit. And, you know, in fact, one of his former teammates, Brandon Graham, also commented on
With
this topic.
the Jets, it was just that defense, man. I know what it's like playing in that 4-3 wide 9, go get it. Every play, it's always stop the run on the way to the quarterback. That's the slogan in that type of defense. So that's what it's all. I feel like it's all scheme. I mean, I've seen different guys flourish in different systems, and then you see them get in another system, it's different. And what they asked of them this year, it just wasn't a great marriage, I would say, because I know Huff can rush. I see him doing all that, but sometimes it's just different with the type of scheme and what people ask of you and they want you to be able to do. And maybe it just wasn't that for Vic Fangio, or I mean, you don't really know. I mean, I just know that he a baller, man, and he hopefully for him, I want it to be a win-win for the team and win for him. But you know, in this case, I want him to be happy, go out if it's here or somewhere else, for him to be able to go show what he can these prime years for him.
So there you go. Like his own teammate from the Eagles, you know, like saying this about him, and again, going back to scheme and how fit is really important. He knows Huff can play. So, you know, he's saying like that wide 9 is going to be a better fit for him. This, I got to admit, this made me feel a lot better. Like I already knew all of this, but like hearing his own teammate say it, I think just it's a little different.
A teammate for a single year. And obviously Brandon Graham is universally respected across this league, right? So I don't think he owes anybody anything to come out and just be highly complimentary of a player unless he actually means it, right? In my opinion. So again, I just go back to, I don't think there's anything to be unexcited about, you know, in this trade. Like the 49ers improved with this trade. A player, albeit situational, rotational, whatever term you want to use, that you know is, if healthy, going to be on the field this year, is going to help you more than a draft pick next year. That's it. Period, point blank, right? A next year's draft pick has zero impact on this season. So I like it. I just think it's another move that goes towards the retool versus the rebuild. If you subscribe to that language and verbiage, like just another little tweak that has you thinking like, all right, I know there's been a lot of changes here. I know that there's a youth movement, but is this team really that far removed from making the playoffs in the NFC? Probably not. And little moves like this add to that effect, you know?
A smart move. Again, low risk, high reward. Really quickly, just to, go back to the 49ers currently where they stand at defensive line. You said it, right? Like, yes, they got this youth movement happening. They bolstered the defensive line via the draft. Run defense was a big point of emphasis. But I think we knew after the draft, even being as excited as we were about like the young players, we weren't so sure how that was going to pan out this year, like how quickly these guys could get acclimated. And certainly at the pass rusher position, when you got Michael Williams, who, we do all like as a pick, but it's like his pass rushing prowess isn't really there yet. He's more so going to be like that run defense guy, at least in year one, like that. We know that's going to be his floor. So we did still kind of acknowledge that something was missing there. And so now with Bryce Huff, you get a veteran, a young veteran, might I add, 27 years old. Once again, I will say that. And so a guy that's experienced in the scheme is very important. And so now this defensive line group, I feel a lot better about it. And again, like even if he's not a starter, like he's a very strong complementary piece to the 49ers, just another piece of that puzzle. And what I kept saying about this defensive line, I mentioned on Friday, is that when they were at their best is when they have these different, packages, right? And all these different guys they can put in different situations where they fit in best. And that's kind of what was missing like the last 2 years, I feel like. But they were at their best when, Saleh was the defensive coordinator and D'Amico Ryans, because it kept them fresh too. I think that was a huge thing. Their rotation was just so dominant, right? And guys were able to stay fresh. They were able to stay healthier. So this is big, I think, in that regard for the 49ers to just have different looks on that line. And every down you might see a different face, right? You just don't know what you're going to get. So I'm excited about that part of this move as well.
It's funny looking at your list and you're like, God, this doesn't even feel like the weakest portion of the team anymore, like it was going. And take the rookies out of it. Take Michael, Collins, CJ West, right? Because we're going to be highly dependent upon those three guys, but it's not the most ideal scenario to be highly dependent upon three rookies across the same position, essentially. But don't discredit the amount of time that Sammy O got last year, right? The amount of time that Evan Anderson got in this defense last year. We know what Kevin Givens is. I'm not saying any of these guys are on the path to make the Pro Bowl. I'm not saying any of that. But that experience last year is going to help some of those players like tremendously. Now you bring in another rotational piece in Bryce Huff. You still have Jordan Elliott there. YGM, he'll be consistent for you. Like, obviously, Bosa, I don't know. I don't want to say the defensive line looks scary, but I would say, to your point, it's deep enough and they're going to carry enough of these guys throughout the regular season that they're going to have those rotational packages that just make it a degree more difficult for the offensive line and for protection when you don't know what you're going to get. When this guy that was playing in the wide nine a snap ago is all of a sudden lined up over your center. Like, what does that mean? Like, what's the protection or the slide that I got to call? It just changes things. And if you can make it a little bit more complex for the offensive line, then you did your job.
Yeah, exactly. This just gives Saleh options. It gives him flexibility. So I'm really excited for this. It's exactly what this defensive line needed. And even if they're just a little scarier than they were last season, Weston, I'll take it, man.
Yeah.
I mean,
for sure.
They were just lacking up front, unfortunately, and outside of Bosa, and now it just feels like they got bodies, but they got capable bodies this time around. So that's really exciting. And so as I was saying about the sub packages, and let me see if this will load here. I had this tweet from Matt Barrows that he tweeted out a little bit ago, threw it in here. He says he throws out just some packages that we might see this year. This is just an assumption from him, but this is very well what we could end up seeing in training camp and into the season for the alpha package. You got Nick Bosa, Alfred Collins, Kevin Givens, Michael Williams. So that's like your base downs potentially. Bravo, you got Bryce Huff, Jordan Elliott, CJ West, or Evan Anderson. Let's not forget about Evan Anderson, who, as an undrafted free agent last year, he turned up and made the most out of his opportunity. Then you got Yetur Gross-Matos. And then the turbo package, which, usually that's just the fastest guys out there. I think, is turbo and NASCAR the same thing? Because I know we've heard of
it's the same concept. Speed. It's just speed. That's what you're trying to say.
Fastest dudes you want out there. Typically, on third down, especially third and long situations. So that could be Bosa, Kevin Givens, Gross-Matos, and Huff. Yep. So this is exciting. Again, I don't even know if you could have done this last year. They didn't really have the options to do different packages like this last year because they just didn't have the versatility of guys available to do it.
I'm going to use the most used phrase in 49er offseason. It's the Saleh effect, right? We got this guy, and now it's let's call it what it was, right? The previous defensive coordinator, the last two previous defensive coordinators, they weren't making decisions. They were coaching the defense that was handed to them. I don't think the trust was there. Obviously, there's a different level of trust. Obviously, there's a different level of respect for Robert Saleh, and clearly he commanded it right out of the gate in terms of just let's focus on the defense here. Where we need to get better. I think we're going to be okay offensively speaking. So to your point, this wasn't even an option last season. Not even close. They just didn't have the roster wasn't constructed that way. They didn't have the players. Right. These three rookies give you a lot of flexibility. They really do. So long as they live up to the billing or and it's going to be trial by fire because they're going to be thrown right in there so long as none of them come out of camp nicked up or anything like that. Knock on wood.
I know it's early, man. I know it's end of May, early June, and OTA. We're seeing those OTA clips and rookie minicamp clips. Michael Williams looks the part. On what we've seen so far.
Yeah, I would say him.
Small sample size.
I would say him and Alfred Collins, they just look like dudes. Just out there, you know what I mean? They're what we would say back in the day. We want those to be the first two that walk off the bus during game day, right? Because the other team's watching you get off the bus and they're like, whoa, those are physical specimens of human beings. It's crazy.
He's a dude. Yeah. I mean, even Alfred Collins, he's a massive guy and he hasn't even suited up yet. He hasn't been able to practice yet, still dealing with the calf injury, but he's got size. We know that for sure. So yeah, I'm excited about this group and definitely just a 180 from what we were at last year. As Jedi says, I love this comment. It cracked me up. I could have led block for Steph and she would gain 6 inches against last year's D line. I mean,
it's true.
It might be true. It might be true.
It was porous. The run defense was horrific last year.
So bad. So yeah, I most definitely expect that to improve at the very least for the 49ers. Weston, let's do just another roundup and another round of applause for John Lynch for the offseason that he's had for the 49ers, right? Remember early in the offseason, he's talking about a plan and they got a plan and all this. And we're just like, yeah, whatever, man. I got to see it. And now that we've seen it, I'm like, okay. You cooked. He cooked.
I know. It's funny, right? Because he could have said the same thing and then just had this horrid offseason and we'd be killing this guy, right? Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. I think some of these players fell into their lap, when maybe they weren't anticipating. And it just, when you look at all the dart holes from all the darts that they threw, they line up pretty well, right? It was pretty accurate on the board. Again, it's hard to look, last year was a gut punch for the team, for the fan base, for everybody in the world of the San Francisco 49ers. So it's hard to pick yourself up off the mat. You know, you had way different expectations the way the season went. I would think if you're not excited about what they've done and what it even looks like potentially beyond the 2025 season, you're not paying attention, you know, or you're just a contrarian by nature, because this team got better in every way, shape, or form. They improved the coaching on the sideline. They got younger. They got faster. What's been problem area number one, if you think of the three phases of the game in the Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch era, feels like it's always been special teams. We're addressing that. You got the big, messy contract negotiations that take place, not just Brock's, even George's, even Fred. Those are big price tags. They're complicated. They have tend to drag. Like, by all accounts, everybody's wrapped up. Everybody's in the building. Everybody's ready to go. It feels like everybody is rowing in the same direction. And how do you not get excited about that?
I'm pretty impressed. Like, I knew that they could turn this around, but I don't think. And look, we still got to see how the season plays out, right? Like, but just surface level, looking at the moves they did on paper, what's been done it exceeded my expectations for just a single off season. So consider me happy. And I'm trying to get the John Lynch gif added to my slides, but if I can't, if it won't move, then
I'd say this, Steph. I'd say, like, there's still reason to be, like, skeptical. Like, last year did happen, right? Like, there's still, like, uncertainty around when is Mustafa going to play. You know, and that hurts the defense. What's BA's return going to look like? What's CMC's return going to look like? What's going on with Trent? So there's still areas to be concerned. But everything that was within the 49ers organization's control during the offseason going into the season, they handled. And we can't always say that. So, like, it's fair to still reserve your commentary. It's fair to still be a little bit concerned, but based on what they are able to control and they were able to do, they did it well. They did it well.
So far, how are you grading the 49ers offseason, Weston? What are you giving?
I gotta give it a solid B+, A-. Again, I go back to the controllables. They can't control what CMC is going to look like in the return. If you want to nick him there, you could say, oh, maybe it was time to move off of him. But what are you moving off of him when he didn't play a season and he's getting up? You know what I mean? Like, the return is not going to be what you're hoping to even get out of him. The BA thing with the injury, but I just have to say the defensive line was the biggest problem. They didn't address the offensive line enough for me. I understand that. But in free agency, they were prudent and they stuck to their guns. They resigned their core. They got rid of the ones that didn't fit what the new mantra is going to be, that have been paid in the past and didn't perform. I think they gutted in the right way, and I think they're now growing again in the right way. You mentioned nearly 20 rookies added to this roster right now. You know what I mean? That's wild. That's a bunch of 22 and 23 and 24-year-old kids flying around the football field, all looking to prove themselves. That alone makes you a better football team. You a bunch of dudes with chips on their shoulder, and now you add Bryce Huff, who probably has a chip on his shoulder. Hey, I just got paid all this money, and by all accounts, I flopped. Like, I have to give it a B+.
And, like, I think to flop, if for someone to sign you, right, and for you to not have the season that the team was hoping for and you were hoping for, and I'm talking about that season last year with the Eagles, like, I think he has motivation, obviously, to prove himself right, but also maybe the Eagles a little bit, right?
For sure.
So I think there's double motivation there for him. Like, hey, you didn't exactly put me in the best spot, to have success. See what I could have done.
For sure.
Exhibit A, hopefully, will be the 49ers season this year. Kelly says he is still worried about the safety group for the 49ers. And, I don't blame them, right? We got Jair Brown, Malik Mustafa is the top two guys. Both of those guys are currently hurt. Jair Brown's recovering from an ankle procedure, as Kyle Shanahan mentioned late last week. And then Malik Mustafa, as we know, had a procedure on his, was it the ACL? Procedure. It wasn't like a surgery.
Yeah, it wasn't a surgery.
They had to clean something up. So he's dealing with that. And then aside from that, you got Richie Grant, Jason Pinnock, Marquez Siegel, who rookie hasn't participated yet either because he's dealing with the sports hernia, according to Nick Wagner, 49ers beat writer. And so you also have Jalen Mahoney and you got George Odom. Do you feel confident about any of those guys, Weston? Because, I think I'm sure that I feel confident about that, given the injuries. Let's say that.
Given the injuries,
I
don't feel great. I think Pinnock is a better player than I think a lot of people are giving him credit for. The Giants secondary was god awful last season. So I think a lot of that is looks bad for the player on film, but when you get into the film room, you probably quickly find out that it wasn't even really his responsibility. Richie Grant was somebody I was really high on coming out of college, and obviously it hasn't lived up to the billing. So I think they have seasonable vets there. George Odom's another one, right? A special teams guy, but can come in and play. So based on the injuries, no, I'm not feeling great because even the rookie who could have a high ceiling is not on the field right now getting meaningful reps that might be needed. I would say that I don't think Mustafa's injury is as bad as it's leading on to, just by the way that he's commenting on social media and almost making light of it.
Yeah.
Clearly he knows something that we don't. Otherwise, I'm pretty sure his people and his representation would be like, dude, we got to slow that down. Jair Brown, I know he had a down year, his second year, but the sophomore slump is not uncommon, and it's hard for me to erase how well he played in his rookie year, kind of being thrown into the fire after Hufunga got hurt. So if those guys are back, my confidence level rises. But this is why the Bryce Huff signing is that much more, or trade is that much more important. How do you mask your defensive backfield in the short term? Is you get to the quarterback, right? You don't let the quarterback hang on to it 5-6 seconds and find a busted coverage downfield. So is it a concern? Yes, but I think, again, one of those concerns is outside of the 49ers' hands, right? These are injuries and procedures that are happening in the offseason, could linger or not. They went and got veteran depth at the position, knowing they were moving on from Hufunga, right? In Pinnock, in Grant, fortified that by drafting. So I feel like what they could control around it, they controlled. These injuries are concerning, so and hopefully they don't linger.
Yeah, hopefully they don't. I agree. I don't think the Mustafa injury is going to be as bad, but still you're kind of banking right on that to go as planned.
Yeah, for sure.
And as we know, things don't always go as planned, especially for the 49ers. I don't know why, but whatever. And then again, Jair Brown, you're banking on him having a better season closer to his rookie year than his second year, right?
Yeah.
So I think you're banking on a lot with the safety group. And I like this comment, though, from Rob D. He says a good D-line helps the secondary. We do expect, as we mentioned, the D-line is hopefully going to be better, right?
Yep.
So that should pay some dividends, right? But there's some concern there. For sure. I definitely could hear that out. Any other positions that you guys in the comments, are still a little concerned with? It's June 2nd, so the 49ers could certainly still make some moves, late in the game here. It's not uncommon for the 49ers to sign guys even in training camp, right? We've seen that before the start of training camp. There's still some free agent safeties out there. There's Julian Blackmon, Jordan Whitehead, Justin Simmons. Guys
roster cuts are coming soon.
Roster cuts. So,
Yep.
Yeah, I think if anything, this might be a position that the 49ers are keeping a close eye on, to say, hey, based on where Mustafa is at a certain point, if you still feel like you need another body, or Brown for that matter, right? You still feel like you need another body, then, you can bring someone in for camp. And sometimes those camp bodies end up being good. And you're like, okay,
It happens.
We can work with this. Yeah, it's happened for the 49ers in the past, so you never know.
Sometimes they just need opportunity. I think another thing that you just mentioned about, like, hey, there's still some available safeties out there. Roster cuts are happening, right? If we learned anything from the Bryce Huff acquisition, is that the 49ers they're still looking, right? They're still looking for talent. They're still looking for opportunity to improve. And here's the funniest thing, right? Even though they carry, I think, the most dead money in the National Football League this year, with like almost like $93 million the last time I saw it in dead cap money, they still freed up over $50 million in cap space for the year. So they still can make a significant move if they wanted to. I don't think there's anybody out there that is significant at this point in the offseason, but they have a ton of flexibility to go get a player that they think can make an immediate impact or fill a gap in the short term. So I would fully expect them to do that. I know the ideal world would say, let's take that $50 million and roll it into next year when this dead cap comes off, and all the fun financial gymnastics that can take place. But they put themselves in a position to say, if there is somebody, regardless of position, that we need to go acquire, we can go do that.
Yeah, they definitely have the flexibility now. It's really just a matter of, hey, Jed, like, are you cool with this?
Yeah.
And who knows? Like, it could even go into the season, right, where you start to see what you have with the current group of players, and if that group of players is kind of exceeding your expectations a little bit, and you're like, oh, like, we may be able to go to the playoffs and we have something here, let's invest a little bit more. So even in season, you can see the 49ers potentially making a move. It's not uncommon for them to make a mid-season trade if they feel like that season is worth making that move, right?
Yeah.
So don't rule that out either. And yeah, free agents, there's some intriguing ones still available. But Weston, to close out this show, I wanted to talk about one kind of, fun thing. So today we got the new Madden cover of 2026, and that would be Saquon Barkley, the reverse jump. And I think this obviously is like the top choice. Everyone's top choice would have been Barkley, and this move is awesome. But I think we're also, us 49er fans, really happy because, hey, we don't have to worry about McCaffrey being cursed at all anymore. Has the McCaffrey Madden curse been lifted with this new Madden cover?
With information I have, I'm going to refrain from comment on if it's been lifted or not. I mean, hey, if you believe what you read about what McCaffrey's doing at camp so far, maybe it hasn't been lifted. The ghost of Achilles' past is still hanging around. For 49er fans, I'm not saying they're wrong. What I'm saying is, coming off of an injury that he missed basically the entire season, there is zero circumstance where in May and June, any athletic trainer, any coach, any agent, any player is allowing themselves to go full speed and not gradually getting back into it. So I will say, maybe we can hold off on the lost a step commentary until we're a little closer to camp. But Steph, we talked about this. So this is the myth that the Madden, it's a curse to be on the Madden cover. And we joked like, hey, I wonder what those players do in the year after being removed from the Madden cover. And it's not great if we're going to go through this. So this is just notable athletes. It's not every single year. But in 1999, Garrison Hurst, 49er, was on the cover. And that was the 98 season. The following year, he broke his ankle in the playoffs and he missed the next 2 full seasons. In 2001, Eddie George was on the cover. In 2021, or the following year, he played the whole season, but had like notable statistic drop-offs. 2002, Dante Culpepper. The following year, he was injured and struggled. The Vikings went 5-11. In 2004, it was Michael Vick. The next year, he broke his fibula in the preseason and missed 11 games. McNabb, 2006. The following year, he tore his groin in week 9 and missed the rest of the season. Sean Alexander was literally the MVP the year that he was on the cover. He was the National Football League's MVP. The next year, he fractured his foot and was out the majority of the season. Brett Favre, 2009. He was traded to the Jets. We all know what happened when he went to the Jets. It was a struggle on and off the field for Mr. Favre. And the list goes on. Peyton Hillis, the year after, injury-riddled. Gronk was on it. The year after, injured his back, missed 8 games. The year after that, Antonio Brown was on the cover. Then he gets traded to the Raiders, and we know what happened in the Antonio Brown story. So then we've had like Josh Allen was most recently on the cover. The year before that was the Madden tribute. Then you had the joint cover, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, and Brady retired the year after that. But like I said, it's not all doom and gloom for the person on the cover. The year after looks a little bumpy based on historical context.
Just to confirm, so a player usually has an awesome season and they become the Madden player.
Yep.
Yeah, they cover the following year. So that's why McCaffrey's on the Madden 25. He had for that one, it's a little wonky. I mean, 2023 was his awesome year. Yeah. And then 2024, when he played, was, not great. From the injury standpoint, he was on Madden 25. Yep. So the game is a year ahead. But so that's what I want to confirm. Is what you're reading is that they still struggled the year after the bad season, the cursed season.
Well, yes. So keep in mind, like you said, McCaffrey is on the cover of Madden 2025, but that is the 2024 NFL season that he is playing in. So yes, everything that I said, like I have 2 columns here. I have what they did on the year they were on the cover, and then what they did the following season after they were no longer on the cover.
So it's a multi-year curse, basically.
Yeah. Sorry, Rob. I know you hate me for bringing all that up, but
I reject this. I rebuke this negative energy.
Hey,
get it away.
You know what? I think you set me up for this, Steph. I think you said
I actually did ask Weston to ask ChatGPT if what happens the year after the cursed year. Yeah. And this is what it came back with. And I guess it still sounds bad. The reports so far have been mostly positive on McCaffrey and how he looks in the early portion of the offseason. So I'm hoping that this stands. But I did have a conversation with Wayne.
Crucified.
This is why we don't listen to AI. But I did have this question for you because I talked to Wayne about it on Friday, and I asked basically do we think that McCaffrey needs to be load managed at all at this point in his career after some injuries that he's dealt with, after all the tread on his tires? He's still relatively young, but we know for running backs, maybe not so much. So do you think he should be load managed a little more than the 49ers have in the past, which is they haven't at all in the past?
Yeah, 100%. You have to. I think you have to hedge your bet. Even if you just take a little off. I mean, but we were all screaming this during his offensive player of the year season, slow it down. The problem is the dude is just so talented and he does so much. He is literally an every down player at his position. It's hard to justify bringing him off the field because it's a drop off no matter what, right? It doesn't matter who you put out there. The reality though is Christian McCaffrey has never been under a workload restriction in his career because he's that talented. But I think it is prudent of the San Francisco 49ers to do this, especially just given the nature of that injury. And what I mean by it is look, when it started with, he's just going to miss the preseason, guys. Nobody worry about anything. And then it was, He's on IR for the first 4 weeks of the season, right? And then we literally saw him in one game in like the snow. And then it was the rest of the season. Achilles are hard.
He looked good in that game.
He did, but that's the only game we saw him, right? And that's the trick about like Achilles, hammies. Like you just don't know when they're going to come up, and it's just so vital to his position and what he does. I think if you're going to manage his workload, it's all off season too, right? Like it's all OTA, it's all camp, it's all of that. Like don't let him take the unnecessary. For me, his workload would be strength and conditioning, strength and conditioning, strength and conditioning. Have faith that the guy is the ultimate competitor, right? He will get himself in that game shape. He will do those things. He is not a guy who takes for granted for where he is. Trust me, nobody wants to prove everybody wrong about his comeback more than Christian McCaffrey does. You know what I mean? So I have a lot of confidence in that. I just think you have to temper the player. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, hey, you're not bulletproof.
Yeah, it's tough. It's a balance. I think, when Clay Kubiak was asked about it, in May when he spoke with the media, he seemed open to it. And then Kyle Shanahan spoke to the media late last week, and he kind of said, you have to protect the player from himself. These are all things I feel like I've heard them say before about, McCaffrey and his workload. But they do also acknowledge, like, it is hard to take him out when in the heat of a game. He doesn't want to come out.
For sure.
So it's a balance. But I think Christian has proven that balance is difficult for a player like him, who's as talented as him, who doesn't want to come out like he does, right? So we'll see how the 49ers play it. I do think, as Benali says, like Isaac Guerrero, and if he's able to take a bigger step in year 2, like that could, if he makes it so it's hard to keep him off the field, then it makes it a little easier to, not decrease, but maybe limit McCaffrey's usage a little bit. I'm not even talking about a lot, guys. Like I'm just saying like a few extra snaps where he's taken a little bit more.
The unnecessary ones, you know what I mean? Like if it's early in a game and it's 3rd and 20 because of a penalty, like do you need to, if you're going to hand off the draw?
Oh, well, I don't know about that. Because
you need it to go to him.
McCaffrey could take a 3rd and 20 and make it a first down.
Those are the ones you just like, look, hey, Guerrero, you take this, get me 6-7, we'll punt, we'll play the field. You know what I mean? Like it's like the unnecessary ones where you're like, why is this guy on the field? Like just protect your investment, But I think they have to. Honestly, I think they have to, because it's the position of all positions that ages quicker than anything else in the. They get a lot of touches and take a lot of hits.
Especially in this offense.
Yeah.
Especially in this offense. I mean, and for good reason, McCaffrey gets a lot of involvement in this offense, but we also saw what it looks like without him there at all.
Yeah.
So would you rather, keep using him, and then, God forbid something happens and
would you rather have Christian McCaffrey for 20 snaps a game or 0 snaps a game?
Yeah, that's an
you know what I'm saying? Like
it's
an obvious
exactly
answer.
Yeah. So we'll see how the 49ers play it. But Wayne was like, no, like I don't really need him to be load managed. It's football. So I get it. Like I could understand both sides, and certainly the 49ers have a hard time keeping him off too. So we'll see how the 49ers play it. But they definitely have more options, a little more depth than they've had in the past behind McCaffrey. So we'll see. Congratulations to Saquon Barkley, though. We'll hope. Godspeed, man. Godspeed. But Weston, hell of a show today. Lots of fun talking about Bryce Huff and just how he fits into the defense. The live chat kept it popping. Appreciate all of you. Make sure you like this video if you haven't yet. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Not just mine, but Weston's as well. Island 49. And then also make sure you hit that notification bell so you know when we go live. Audio listeners, make sure you leave a rating, leave a review. Really helps me out. Really appreciate all of you. Have a good rest of your week, folks. Talk to you later. Peace.